Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Monday night. You know what that means? That means we watched Visions. That's right. We watched another episode of Visions. What did we think about it? We're going to have to stay tuned to find out more.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. So, another episode of Visions, man.
Yep, 4 down.
Four down. And look at this. I bought a Visions t-shirt.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, one of like a couple of them. I'll probably debut the Darth Vader one next week. But yeah. So, I mean, I'm coming to everybody live from North Carolina right now on a job. That's right. Kind of, a little bit of hardcore here. I mean, I didn't want to
work and play, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Ronaldo joins us, says, hello, guys. I've been waiting a long time for this moment. It is interesting that he has, getting into this basically, it's interesting that he has been waiting specifically for us to watch this episode.
Yeah, I guess we kind of have to turn the show over to Ronaldo almost because to find out why.
Yeah, I know. I am kind of curious. Ronaldo, why? He also says that that's a cool shirt. That's great, but why? Why did you want us to see this? Why did you want us to see this episode so badly? That's what we really want to know. I mean, that's really kind of funny, right? It's kind of like we're hosting the show. We're like, no, we're going to turn it over to one of our viewers.
Hey, that's how interactive we are here on the show. We want everybody to engage. So Ronaldo has his first segment on Head to Head, man. It's an inaugural segment.
Well, I mean, while we're waiting for him to chat that in, I have to say that overall, I really kind of like the tone of this episode. And it was vibrant, which it was like way more vibrant and colorful than I think a lot of the other episodes have been. But it's, I don't know, at first it was kind of, I can't say I was having a hard time following it, but at the same time, it was like I was trying to see where it was going. I think that was really what it was.
Okay. I mean, I kind of echo your whole thing, keeping all things Star Wars related, I guess. Echo. Anyway, yeah. It was very, very vibrant, very colorful. I think the animation was really cool. I love that. But yeah, like this time, the story was a little bit tricky to kind of for me to grasp at first. And like they just never have like regular names. They had like names like F. Like what the F is that? Like seriously. So
yeah, and which one was F?
That was the Jedi, I believe.
The older Jedi Master?
No, the chick.
Or the girl? Okay.
The girl, yeah.
Because yeah, I mean the thing about it too was, and this is what was really funny to me about this, is that like on one hand, it dealt with a lot of really cool themes. And to me, this episode was a little bit deeper than what some of the other episodes have been. And it also, I thought, really did a good job of incorporating some of the more classic Star Wars stuff. Like when it had the battle droids. And yet they were kind of familiar. They had the humor. They basically had the same personalities, if you want to call it that, the same characterizations as what we're used to.
Right.
And then I thought that the older Jedi Master guy, I really liked him. I actually wouldn't mind seeing more content with him in it. Because he was sort of just like, Mr. all cool and loose. And, he was teaching her the stuff, of course, that he wanted her to learn. But at the same time, he's kind of chilling. He almost seemed like he was just really observing. And he just kind of had this way of just sort of looking from the outside in and taking everything in. And you knew that he was trying to get her to a point, but you really weren't sure what that is.
Yeah, I definitely got Miyagi vibes from him.
Yes. And then, of course, I also thought it was cool that when he pulls out the lightsaber at first, and then it ends up being, essentially a tool for him.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they will take their lightsaber hilts and make them multi-purpose. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I think, like I said, they dealt with a couple of tropes on this particular episode. One, being like the force is like, in all living things. You really got that vibe from here. So they talked about, like, even when they were chanting like the forest, the river, the whatever the thing was, it was kind of like reiterating that the force and everything is kind of and anything living or this kind of surrounds and binds everything, the world together. So you got a lot of that. Eventually I got to the point where it's like, okay, I guess there was like a war or something that happened, and this group kind of took over, and whoever the leader was would have to sacrifice themselves to this new person, I guess.
Yeah, well, what was interesting about that was the war they were talking about is a classic one, right? The Separatists came in and they basically took over and stripped the planet of its resources, and then when it was left to nothing, then this warlord type of guy came in, and he had basically found all these battle droids, and he was able to commandeer them more or less. Yeah, he activated them. He had that little ship that was basically like the droid control center, command center.
What's funny, that thing looked like the Falcon.
It did. It totally reminded me of that.
Yeah.
All right, so Ronaldo's chimed in. He basically says that this is his third favorite episode. And it seems to me that this episode in particular is starting to feel a little bit more like classic Star Wars. And that is the vibe that I got from this, because some of the lessons, that older Jedi guy basically was reminding me more of an Obi-Wan figure or maybe like a Yoda figure. And it had the droids in more their classic form, and they acted the way that they would act in Star Wars. And that's basically what Ronaldo's saying too. He goes, when I say classic, I mean the droids, a Jedi hiding his true identity and saving a specific population. And of course, talking about the last act, which we could spend a little bit of time on, because to me, that's when things turned really cool in this episode. When, he's about to kill Saku, who one of the things that I thought about her character that was really strange is when she kind of stood up and was like, no, we got to fight or whatever. She looked so unlike all the rest of the people, right? She's dressed in like these, like almost like a Harley Quinn type of thing, like these high cut shorts and, tied off shirt. And I'm like, okay, you're not from around here, are you? You don't look like the rest of these people. It almost looks like some modern Earth design. So that kind of took me out of it a little bit, actually.
Yeah, it kind of gave me that oh, I can't believe I'm making this reference. It's remember from Austin Powers, Fook Me and Fook You?
Oh yes.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I had to say that very carefully. But
yes, you did. Yes, you did. But you're right though.
That was kind of reminded me, but it kind of had that whole. But that's a typical like anime kind of look, though.
It is, and I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to bring in elements of traditional and more modern anime, and then make that fit within the Star Wars world. And these last couple episodes, in particular, I think they've actually been doing a pretty good job with that. Because last episode was a turning point for you. You started going, okay, I'm not really ready to say I like this yet. But I was cool with this episode and I enjoyed watching it. And that was the thing. And that's kind of how I felt about this one. Although I had to, I think, pay a little bit more attention to and really think about some of the things about this one before I really locked into what it was. Because, first you have these two. And once again, I'll say this, as far as if there's a criticism so far to this entire series, because you could say this about every episode. We need more context going into these episodes, I think. Because once again, okay, you have this older Jedi master, and then, of course, you have his, I guess it's his Padawan. But you're not really sure too much about why are they here? I mean, they talk about how, you know, they had to go to the planet or whatever, but they weren't 100% clear about what was going on. And then basically panning over, and then you see the village bride, for whom the episode was titled, being carried by her groom to be or whatever. Yeah, her fiance, right, on the back, which was, you know, kind of a cool little custom sort of thing that they were doing. But at the same time, it's like they were trying to transition to where the two Jedi were watching these people, and the Jedi Master was teaching his Padawan lessons. But again, it took you a minute to really lock into this. Now, you brought up a point a couple of weeks ago that I think could actually shine some light on it, where you were like, well, maybe if you and I were more hardcore anime viewers, some of these things might feel a little bit familiar to us. In other words, we might be able to lock into everything more.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you as far as the story is concerned. I mean, that's kind of one of the things that kind of threw me off. Was like we were so focused on, like, you know, the bride and, you know, that whole thing. And then it would cut back to like the Jedi and the Master and the lessons they were trying to teach. But like, you didn't understand, like, okay, well, one was like, why does he have a little helmet thing on? And, you know, what was with her in the mask? You know, she had that thing going. It's just kind of like there's no connective tissue in a lot of different areas.
Well, and the other problem too, if you notice this, I don't know if you picked up on this, but you could almost tell when he kept saying, you know, talking about her conflict and things like that there was a reason, something personal had happened to her that they didn't really touch on at all. And it seems like that was the reason why he brought her to that place. And maybe what it was that this whole bride situation where it's like, okay, this bride and groom have to basically, you know, sacrifice,
themselves.
Not in a death thing, but I mean, pretty much give themselves over to this warlord guy in place of the leader, which it's really kind of strange to me because it's implied that they've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
You know, my whole thing is like, well, can't you all just get a different leader? You know, I mean, if you give them the leader, then it's sort of one and done. At least that's what they had implied, but you don't know.
Yeah, it's some ritualistic thing that they had going on. That, once again, like you said, context. Well, I think like an opening crawl would have, like, you know, done the job, like a short crawl or something like that, you know. But I think that, like you said, when we got to the third act, like you said, business did pick up. You really got, like I said, you got to see the humor from the battle droids, which I thought was cool. The Master kind of gave me Miyagi and Master Splinter from the Ninja Turtles.
Yes,
that's who he kind of reminded me of.
Oh, that's awesome, because that is so true.
You know, and even like how he tried to, like, you know, he was like the sniper on top of the cliff. It reminded me of the second Ninja Turtles movie, you know, where Splinter came to save the turtles he had that bow and arrow and he shot them down with the little net. So it just kind of gave me those beats, which was cool. It was fine for me, you know. And then he kind of backed off because he's like, all right, you know, you got the rest. And so then that's, of course, now this was really cool is when you actually see how powerful this I can't even say it was a Padawan, but I guess it's a Jedi Knight.
I guess.
But how powerful he is, because she brought out the whole Kylo Ren thing. You know,
yeah, well, that was one of the things. And, you know, kicking off the whole third act of this episode, I thought was really great, right? It's, you know, he's going to shoot her and you hear the gun go off and it's fading to black. And then when it fades up, a la Kylo Ren, you just see the laser bolt just sort of frozen there. Yeah.
Yep.
And then, you know, the camera kind of tilts up a little bit and reveals, the Jedi Padawan or Knight or whatever, basically stopping it. And now the Warlord's all freaked out because he's like, whoa, you know, who are these people? And I thought that was just so dramatic and so well done.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that, it was funny because I thought the Warlord person was like a Force user as well, honestly, the whole time. It totally looked
Yep,
like an Asajj Ventress or, one of those type of people.
exactly. Or like an Inquisitor, maybe.
Yep. And so, yeah, I totally thought that was the case. And then when it wasn't, it was like, okay, well, who the heck are you? So, oh, I'm a Jedi. And they're like, okay.
Well, and
And
the thing
then,
is, that Warlord guy, I actually really thought he was cool. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing more stuff with him and get a little bit more into his story, because he kind of came off. He kind of sounded like George Takei. Like, he had the whole Sulu vibe to him. And I know George Takei actually voiced some. I think it was in Rebels. Could have been. It was either Clone Wars and Rebels, but I know he voiced a character in one of those series.
yeah, he also gave me the God King from Spartans, like 300. He kind of had that arrogance, that gravitas, type thing.
And it was
Until he
cool,
was,
just like, forgive me for, being cautious or whatever. It's like, oh, my caution's paid off. I mean, he just
Yeah.
kind of had this cool little bad guy swagger to him, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like almost like a Thrawn.
Yeah, absolutely like that. And I thought that was a really cool, nice touch. And again, one of the things that I like about these episodes versus maybe the first few is that they've gotten a little bit less surreal, I guess would be the word to use. They're a little bit more tangible, and they're a little bit more, I guess, linear in a sense, as far as their storylines go. And kind of like Ronaldo said, they're starting to feel a lot more like Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think the highlights of this particular episode were the animation was beautiful. I think the classic Star Wars feel was definitely a plus. From the droids to the Force lessons or the lessons they were trying to teach. Even some of the tension that they had, was like very Star Wars like.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I thought that was great.
That was really cool.
Well, and then of course that end scene, where after she ignites her lightsaber, that was such a cool, very cool scene. It almost reminded me of the whole Rey igniting hers and the fact that they were both yellow, but because that was the one. I mean, it sounds so stupid to say this, but one of the biggest highlights for me for Rise of Skywalker is that close-up when she ignites the yellow lightsaber, and it made that distinct hum.
Yeah.
And it was just so chill-inducing, it was such a powerful moment.
Well, that's because that's she's actually fully completed like everything. It's not just she went up against Palpatine, defeated Palpatine, and you would think that's even helped redeem Kylo in a way. But not only that, but she did build her own. So yeah, that was pretty sweet.
So Ronaldo has a question. He says, I have a question. Do you think that the story of the protagonist saving a small village from bandits is being used too much in Star Wars? And I think that he's referring to, well, he actually says it. I was about to guess, and then that's the next thing. We have seen it in Clone Wars twice, once in Mandalorian and now in Visions in this episode and in the first one. And I do want to note that there are some similarities to the first episode of Visions and this one, where they do have that same basic theme. And even though I don't know if I would actually go as far as to say it's overused, and the only reason why I say that is because it feels like it would be an organic storyline or plot point in this universe. In other words, it feels natural. It doesn't feel like somebody is trying to jam in this plot and make it Star Wars-y. I mean, if you think about it, this is something that would be very natural to happen in this universe, in this galaxy.
Yeah, I think this is a piggyback off what you just said. Yeah, it is very natural. And then you also have to kind of remember who the Jedi are and what they are. They're keepers of the peace. That's
Absolutely.
their job. And so, like, that's kind of always been their thing, really. It's kind of like defending people who can't speak for themselves. That's kind of their whole thing. And like, yes, they're part of the Republic, but their job, I mean, the Republic kind of had their own army. That was kind of the other thing too. And you will hear it all the time. Oh, we got to help settle a trade dispute, and we have to help, bridge this. So they're kind of like ambassadors, and they kind of function in a multitude of different ways. They're kind of like, in a way, if you look at the FBI, right? Like everybody thinks that the FBI just, but they have so many different branches within the FBI. You got the ones who follow money. You got other ones who deal with like more of the, fugitive recovery type stuff. You got all these different types of agents, and that's kind of how the Jedi operate, in a way where you kind of have ones who are a little bit more of the political, or who deal with more like the, the over, and that's more like your Jedi Council. They kind of deal with the politics of everything, how to run the council, and how they're going to adapt with the regime, whether it's the Republic or what have you. But then you also have, you got librarians like Jocasta Nu. You got people who are healers. You got, or who are into more the medical side of being a Jedi. So you have all types of people who deal with that type of stuff. And so I think the Jedi showing up to help these small little countries, and once again, that's the landscape in the world that they live in.
Well, and I also don't think it's overused, because even though we have seen this storyline before in a couple of the series, it's kind of like you said, I think it should actually happen more, just because of the nature of the Jedi, right? Where we're more used to seeing the storylines of either them fighting Sith or more the lore type of stuff, or basically training, going on missions, that kind of thing, where this is a little bit more of, I think, like you said, a natural extension of what the Jedi do. And when you add to that too, you could say the same thing, and a lot of people would say, well, when you look at all the procedural dramas that are on television, everything from your Law and Orders to your CSIs, to your NCISs, and then of course all the copycat series basically that have come out, some good, some not so good. Sometimes people are saying, well, I really wish they would do different kinds of shows instead of here's another police procedural type thing. You can make that argument, but if you were to actually look within those shows and go, yet again, it's another murder that they got to solve and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's what they do though. So, and that kind of goes into your point. Now you could say, well, maybe I would like to see different stories. I would like to see different types of characters featured. I would like to take this giant universe and maybe expand it a little bit and maybe see some other types of storylines. But as far as analyzing this particular storyline itself, it falls perfectly in line with what the Jedi do and what you would expect. Not to mention they weren't really looking for it. It just sort of happened. Although, again, that wasn't as clear as I think it should have been. It's hard to tell whether the Jedi Master knew that this little ritual thing was happening. And so he basically brought his Padawan there to sort of either do what she did or maybe teach her some other lessons or something. Or whether or not they just happened to be on this planet and this happened. Because I really like the banquet scene. I really like the scene where they were invited to the banquet and, they were talking about all kinds of different things, They're basically going over what this whole thing meant to the village and how outsiders, it would almost be rude not to invite them and, all this stuff. And there's a lot of dialogue. I don't remember like every little piece of it, but there was a lot of dialogue in that scene that was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about, one of the things is that, we shouldn't be here. Like, this is not really our thing, but it's like, well, if you're not, then it's kind of rude to, to decline them. And it's like, no, enjoy it. Like and I think what they're showing is like, even within the Jedi, you can't be so starchy, and you gotta have to be able to, be laid back, enjoy life, enjoy, enjoy a celebration. Celebrations are meant to be, had amongst a large group of people.
Yep.
That's what it's for. It's kind of just reminding the person of humanity, and just being like, what you're really fighting for. This is what you're fighting for: people's right to celebrate, people's rights to do certain things. This is what really truly being a Jedi is about. It's not just the study and the dedication to the craft, but remembering why you do what you do.
Yep. And then Ronaldo goes on to say, her lightsaber design looks like a Japanese sword. I like that kind of creativity. I thought that was cool too.
Yeah, they did the katana version. Yeah.
And I thought that was a really nice touch, because one of the things that I like is they do feature the different lightsaber designs. And some of them are kind of those freaky ones, like the one, you shove in that umbrella-like thing and it from the first episode. And
right.
Some of the other different, more outlandish designs. But I think that something like this was somewhat of a really cool take on the traditional lightsaber, where they made it more like a katana, which I thought was really, really cool. And I mean, the whole scene where, she flips over and you really don't see anything, but then you see his hand and the blaster fall. And then he just kind of falls. I mean, I just think that whole thing was very elegantly done. And I thought that was really cool to see.
I want to know what's up with the shoe thing. Like, she kind of like activated her shoe or something.
I know. And I was wondering the same thing too. I was wondering if that was like, some sort of like a razor blade type of a thing that she used in addition to her lightsaber, or whether, it was for some propulsion or again, they don't make this stuff clear. It's a lot of it's very surrealistic and
allegorical in a way.
Yeah, and also implied. So Ronaldo says, would you like to see that design in live action?
Are you referring to the lightsaber?
The katana-like lightsaber, yeah. It's like part of me does and part of me doesn't, because, the lightsaber is kind of a sacred thing. It's a weapon, and you see that there are variations of it. You definitely see the variation in the hilt depending on who's wielding it and stuff like that. But then you even see some variation in the lightsaber designs themselves. But I don't know if I would. Plus, it's like, how would you explain that anyway? Because then you would have to focus the crystal to actually have that shape.
Yeah.
I don't know if that works.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I want to keep the lightsabers the way that they are. I even what they try to do with the whole Kylo Ren thing, where it was kind of like serrated, almost like a serrated blade, because it was just so unstable, like him. Which I get. I mean, I get the symbolism. However, it's still kind of like, I mean, even having cross guards, like it was kind of like, okay, really, but
yeah, I mean, I think that it gets into the point to where it's okay. We're gonna try to make lightsabers different and unique and all that, just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, and I get, that's why I love like the whole hilt thing. Because it made more sense. Like, now, if you had a Japanese style hilt, that I could deal with that.
There you go.
Sure. If you have more of a traditional katana or hilt, because Dooku's hilt, I loved his hilt, the fact that it was curved, because it was more to kind of designed for more of a fencing style movement. So he needed that to kind of.
Right, that made perfect sense.
It made perfect sense for that.
And then, of course, Maul's, Palpatines. Everybody forgets about Palpatines.
Yeah, Palpatines. Even Vader's, like the way his grip was, like, it was designed more for power, and so, and of course, like, even the Wookiees, the ones who were Wookiees, they had wooden lightsaber hilts, which I thought that was interesting. Like, how do you do that? But I guess you could, in a way. Like, you could, I guess, no different than you have like a wood-plated pistol or something like that. I guess it's kind of the same thing. But
yeah, as long as you could focus the crystal and make the beam and all that.
Well, I was just thinking like the heat from it, like, would burn, just. But I guess
yeah. some sort of shielding, or not to
Yeah.
mention the fact that we're assuming that the wood that they're using mimics our own.
Yeah.
You know, you can always cheese out that way, right?
Yeah.
Ronaldo says, I mean, there are things that only work in this animation style. I love the katana design and the umbrella lightsaber design in the first episode, but it only works in anime, I think. And I think that that's the point. He also says maybe the Inquisitors doing that helicopter thing with their lightsaber works in anime.
You know what? I forgot about that. See, I don't mind the whole spinning blade thing. That's actually cool to me.
Yeah.
It's the flying thing that bothers me. You know, it's like, okay. You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, now you made this thing into a helicopter now. Like, was like go gadget, you know.
Well, and again, and this is exactly, and honestly, that was the thought that I had when I first saw that. But that's one of those things that definitely, man, you have to really be careful what you bring in and everything. Like, it's okay in a thing like this, because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, here's Star Wars done in the style of anime. And we're going to bring elements of the anime world into Star Wars. And then in a way, we're bringing Star Wars into the world of anime. So you have this pretty much like this really cool combination of styles and different elements. And some of that stuff works in that. But the problem is that if you try to bring that into the more traditional Star Wars stuff, your movies, your TV shows, unless you were to do something like Visions in a live action, you could do that, but it would have to be understood what it is. But if you bring it into, I would say, Star Wars proper,
the traditional Star Wars,
yeah, like basically the main canon and all that stuff, then I think it would actually diminish it a little bit. I don't think that it would work so well.
I agree.
Ronaldo says that helicopter thing was silly. So silly that I want to see it in live action. You know, the closest thing, and this is where you got to be really careful, because I thought the General Grievous thing in Attack of the Clones was cool. As well as, well, actually, no, he was in Revenge of the Sith. I'm sorry. No, he was in Attack of the Clones. No, he wasn't. He was in Revenge of the Sith. Look at me. You're witnessing me having a stroke right on TV. But yeah, he was in Revenge of the Sith. And a lot of the stuff that he did in that was, I would say it was borderline. It was cool. But at the same time, it almost got a little bit too silly and took you a little bit out of it if it had gone too far. And I think the helicopter thing is definitely falls into that category.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Grievous, you can make an excuse for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with him being so mechanical and everything like that, it's like, okay, it makes sense. He's not even really human. He's more of a machine, you know, so I get that, you know. Although it still bothers me to this day, that whole Obi-Wan trying to kick him and stuff. And I'm like, dude, really? Like, I know they kind of play that up for laughs or whatever, but that was just so stupid to me. Like, Obi-Wan is not that dumb, you know, but...
Well, again, though, it brings up a good point, because this is something that sometimes they do have struggles finding the balance between the humor and where the humor gets a little bit too silly. And again, that was George Lucas. That wasn't Disney Star Wars. That was George Lucas Star Wars. And the problem with Lucas is a lot of times he will do what's funny to him. He will do what makes him happy. And if anybody else is on board, great. If not, oh well. Yeah. But, and you can let that go because it's his creation. But anybody else, it's like, nah, man, there's just certain things, certain rules, certain guidelines to which you'd have to adhere in order to really, I think, successfully balance all the elements that make Star Wars what we love about Star Wars. Ronaldo says, the Grievous thing makes sense. He's an android. He could do that kind of thing. And exactly, that's a good point, actually. you can let
Yeah.
that go. And there's certain things even within the Force that you can let go. But then the problem comes, and you and I have addressed this a million times too, where it's like, okay, you guys, on one hand, you're showing off all this immense power. And then in another scene where that same power would come in real handy and actually end the conflict, you don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I get it. It's making for dramatic storytelling, but it doesn't make sense in universe. And I think that that's something that some of these creators, and of course, this is going beyond the scope of Visions a little bit, but I think that some of the creators start to lose sight of the fact that not only do you want a good story, and not only do you want it to make sense from a storytelling perspective, but it actually has to make sense within this universe too and operate by its laws.
Right.
So what are some final thoughts you would have on this episode?
Oh, final thoughts I have. I thought it was.
Thought you were doing a Yoda there for a second. Final thoughts I have.
Once again, great animation. I love the classic tropes of Star Wars, the Force, the lessons, the droids and things of that nature. So I enjoy those. A little bit more context would be nice, and I guess in some case better dialogue. That seems to be kind of the struggling point. And I pretty much would say maybe like better, like names for like some of these characters. Because I mean, like you say, if you wanted like to say like, "Ooh, I would love to follow this character," and their name is F, like the heck is that? Like how am I supposed to, so that's
Well, you know what it probably is, like these guys in the anime studio are probably coming up with some Japanese name, and some guys probably going, "Look, dude, there's no way the Americans are going to be able to pronounce this. Let's just call him F."
Yeah, FA2187. We'll just call you Finn.
Right, that's basically it. Well, Ronaldo's thoughts are, he says, overall, I love this episode. The animation was great, and I love the action. I pretty much will echo your sentiments, Daryl. But I did love the dialogue in it. I just wish there was more of it. I wish that they had done more that
Building.
a little bit more, because I actually thought that the dialogue in this was probably the most meaningful of the episodes that we've seen so far.
Right. But I'll also say like the action, there wasn't a whole lot of action, and that's fine. But the action that we did get, I kind of wanted more. Like we finally get to a good point, and it's just kind of like the Maul and Obi-Wan duel. Like it was just over so quick. And I kind of wanted to see like a little bit more of a battle. But
that would have been cool. But then I think part of that was to illustrate how powerful this, because you got to remember that as fans sometimes we're very hypocritical, right? On one hand, we'll say, well, we want more battle, we want more of this, we want more of that. But then when they give it to us, we're kind of like, well, wait, a Jedi wouldn't battle this long with, say, a bounty hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, this should be over in like 2 seconds. But if it is over in 2 seconds, then we complain about it. Like, well, we didn't get enough.
Well, that's what I said. Like, I think, in some ways you can, I think it's more so like, once again, the balance, like you could have had, the droids kind of trying to attack her, and she just goes to the droids really quick and, munch them down. And then maybe you get to the guy, the little warlord dude, and he might have like a vibro blade or something like that. Okay. Give us a little, nothing like, I'm not expecting like, the Anakin and Obi-Wan duel or anything, but I'm just saying, just give us, a little bit more, just so it's like, okay, cool. That was a really nice ending. We got to see a cool lightsaber blade. It was yellow. We still don't know what these like Iron Man propulsion shoes came from, but whatever,
Yeah, so, I know. And I would agree with that too. But I will say that this episode and last week's episode has really given me more hope for this series. I went from, saying like, oh man, I got to watch Visions again because we got a show Monday, to like, okay, cool. I'm going to check out and see what this episode has to offer and everything. I'm starting to warm up to it, which is something that we had discussed early on when we said, we have to be careful about how critical we are of it, because we're like 2 episodes in and going, yeah, whatever. And it's sort of like we said that we would maybe, I should say it like this, maybe we would have a different viewpoint if we had just watched all the episodes and then started reviewing each one individually.
Well, Ronaldo, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the 7th one that you feel like we're really gonna just,
Well, I think so. His couple of comments here are to give you a little tease for the next episode. You might like it or even love the story, idea, and concept of the next episode. And then he says, we will see what you think of the anime format to tell this story. So, already I'm looking forward to this next one. And he did say that I think it was 5 and 7 that he said are his 2 favorites. And the next one is 5.
5. Okay.
See, I can count because I'm looking. There it is.
Yep.
Right up there. It says episode 4. Well, next in line would be episode 5. So I am looking forward to seeing what that episode has to offer us. I think it's going to be really cool because I can already see that as we go later. Now, I'm not really sure how they pick the order in which they numbered these episodes. That was something that I meant to actually bring up a couple episodes ago, where the more of these things that I'm watching now, I can see that there's somewhat of a method to the madness, but I'm just wondering why they chose episode 1 to be 1 and 2 to be 2 and so on.
Yeah.
Ronaldo basically says episode 7 is my favorite and 5 is his second favorite.
Okay.
This episode 4 was his third. So
okay.
We do have a cool journey ahead of us. I'm really looking forward to it now. I can honestly say that I'm not dreading. I'm like, oh, got to watch another Visions episode. And even though that is fun, I mean, even if we totally hated the thing, there would be something fun about making ourselves watch Star Wars content we don't like and then discussing it, because we're not the type of people that just only, oh yeah, everything is great and we love all this stuff. Sometimes it's fun to just watch these episodes and just go, what were they thinking,
Exactly.
But, I'm thinking Friday, we know we have the, what's it called? Terrifying Tales or something. I don't know why I keep messing up the name of this stupid special, but it's basically the Lego Star Wars Halloween special. So we're going to be reviewing that Friday. So you're going to want to watch that at 8 o'clock. Of course, make sure that, you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow so we can bring more Star Wars discussion to you guys. And then, of course, a week from tonight, we're going to move on to episode 5, Ronaldo's second favorite episode, and we're going to see what's all the big fuss about. So you guys aren't going to want to miss any of the episodes that we got coming up, so make sure that you check it out. So with that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.